What's going on, guys? Welcome back. Some commentary for you. I want to show you some Madden 18 footage from Ultimate Team. This is the Ultimate Barry Sanders, highest level Barry you can get, and talk about player movement, real player motion, obviously the big push this year. Talk about FIFA and UFC 3 technology. But to me, if you look at this, you're going to notice player movement is very choppy. This is why the overhaul is needed, probably why they're leading with the feature. It has felt unnatural for years. Acceleration and deceleration has kind of felt forced. It's really created this arcade look and feel. I think it's also kind of built itself into the swerving that we see, swerve catching. I mean, that's all from player motion and player movement not being correct. You know, it's strange. You look at the comments, a lot of people bring up past games, which obviously have smaller libraries, but suffer from, you know, motion shifting and warping that we used to talk about. But from a user standpoint, they felt better. They felt more responsive. And I think responsive really is the key game changer here. The past two engines that Madden has used have failed to deliver that. And in some cases, the leaked footage is kind of backing that up. But, you know, this is all stuff we've heard before. Okay, but not as the main selling point really of a game since maybe Madden 25 when True Step was put into play. So we need to see if these are true changes. I'd also like to point out that we're not hearing anything about reactions. And to me, uniform reactions, simultaneous reactions are just as big as a problem as player movement. I've got a catalog of videos that backs that up. If you've got a defensive back and a linebacker that are reacting at the same time, then it doesn't matter what happens when they get to the ball carrier. You know, we've had things in the past where Madden implements something and it's only on the offense, not on the defense, and you kind of have that unfair balance in gameplay from one side to the next. We also have to understand how this is going to impact the tackling mechanic, because if we're truly talking about physics and player movement, you know, then we have to have impacted gang tackles. We should actually lose the ability to push the piles, to button mash, to create broken tackles, because the game in the background should be calculating something to get a simulation result. You know, they talk about implementing hit the hole and move the pile as resolutions like, you know, moving linemen and exploiting line gaps, and those are small things in the scope of gameplay, but as a whole they're very important to kind of create this more fluid and natural movement. But again, it's just going to go back to the implementation. And I will say, when EA starts to talk about freedom for users, I get concerned, because freedom for users generally boils down to how likely animation transitions are, and that's almost the degradation of Madden gameplay as a whole. I mean, specifically online, you know, more freedom for a user almost directly ties to how much ground you can cover. I don't think you have to play Madden long online to see it's a huge imbalance in gameplay when a linebacker can control 60% of the field and animations control just about all the outcomes. I mean, we've seen this in the past. You know, punters are used as linemen and operate as they should, not as a punter. But, you know, to me, when I look at everything, you know, player movement aside, tackling is what I'm really looking forward to. I mean, momentum in particular has been one of the issues Madden has struggled with most. You know, it's actually led to halfbacks not being respected well in Madden. I mean, I've shown examples on my channel, other people have on theirs. You know, you've got a larger running back like a Lynch or a Lacey in years past, you know, have been taken down by a single tackler or a smaller player in situations where they shouldn't have been. You know, meanwhile, you get a player like Marlon Mack, who can nearly break tackles at will or string together trucks. You know, I also want to talk about, lastly here, there was an interview that was done where they talked about a 20 to 25 point difference in pursuit ratings and ball carrier ratings that would generate fake outs. And one of the things in particular they talked about was, unless you were strafing, you could have certainties of whether jukes would be, you know, I guess, successful. And 100% of the time should not be a possibility. You know, there has to be things like fatigue and injury that factor into these things. And for that matter, a 20 to 25 point rating, I think, is a far larger window than I ever expected. At the NFL level, you know, I don't think you have that massive disparity among starters. So unless they've reconfigured ratings like they did with Madden Ultimate Team, I don't know if that's a window that's going to provide a real change on every play, on every down, which is kind of what we want to see when they overhaul player movement like this. So with that said, love to know what you guys think about this. Appreciate you checking it out, and I'll be back in the week with more commentary.